councillors, ladies and gentlemen from the public and the media, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. It's 7:30, we're here. So first item on the agenda of tonight's cabinet, any apologies for absence? Don't have any, please. Beg your pardon? May I suggest you sit closer? I can't turn the volume up on this. How's that, sir? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Councillor Zerger.
I've got a non-pecuniary interest in the matter of the award of the contract for HTS as a non-executive director. I'm sorry, no, I have a pecuniary interest because it's money.
You get paid for it.
I will get it right next time.
You haven't got long.
Thank you very much.
You wish, Simon.
Gentlemen, please. I'd just like to make a slight amendment to the running order of the agenda tonight. I'd like to propose item 16 move up to just after item 7, petitions from the public, just as the item 16 pertains to an item that a number of members of the public have asked a question about, and they may wish to sit and hear that section of tonight's cabinet debate. Cabinet consent for us to do that? Okay, item 3 minutes, pages 4 to 10 of the pack. Councillors, are you content for me to approve those? Are there any matters arising from those minutes? No? Okay. Then we move on to item 5, written questions from the public. There are a number here. We have question 1 from Mr. Cliff Phillips to Councillor Simon Carter. Mr. Phillips, would you like to come up to the microphone to ask your question?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Okay, myself, it's fine. My question 1 is, after a personal investigation of these building companies, I have found that both have a very poor track record. All Google reveals over the past year in the High Court judgments against the other company. I have already sent documents to the relevant officer about these companies. Their response was, contractors mustn't be approved. The question of similarities of price was answered, contractors are unaware of what other tenders for the works. It is for this reason that there will be variation in the costs provided. I am unable to comment on why this is so similar. Why then would either of these 70 tenders be considered to be acceptable when being virtually and suspiciously identical?
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, would you be kind enough to turn your microphone off in between questions, please? Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Does you want it read out?
Would you like the question read out? Is it the answer read out, sir? Yes, you'd like the answer to the question read out.
Thank you to all the 4 questioners for these questions tonight. Because they're all linked, I'm going to provide one composite answer, which is available in the hard copy which you've already got. There's also a copy of the report coming to this committee tonight, which provides more information. Each question will be allowed, will come forward to ask that question, and they will each be allowed to ask a supplementary question as well. So that's all how it's going to be handled. Now, I understand and appreciate that the major works can be and are a financial burden to the leaseholders and we have provided already quite a lot of information to individuals causing us beforehand. I and my housing colleagues will continue to respond to any further questions you may have with information and support in addition to the further consultation that will occur after the awarding of the contract. The council, as landlord for the block, is responsible for keeping the maintenance to an acceptable standard with an obligation to ensure the structure and fabric are kept in good order. The works listed for these blocks have been identified as required in order to meet these obligations to ensure its building components remain safe and serviceable. The project also improves the energy efficiency and reduces ongoing maintenance costs. It is, however, understood by their very nature these works can be disruptive. Every effort has therefore been made to minimise disruption by packing these works together. Evidence suggests this approach is more cost effective, lowering the potential cost of these orders, such as only one use of scaffolding, for example, as outlined in our lease. Consultation with those leaseholders within the block has and is being undertaken through the formal processes. Leaseholders are invited at various stages of the consultation process to express their views in an environment of openness and transparency to ensure works are fair and reasonable. I note the question regarding a potential sinking fund for these works. Approximately 20 years ago, all leaseholders were written to with the option of establishing a sinking fund as part of their service charge or to pay for major works as and when required. Responsible leaseholders were to pay major works invoices as and when required. The contract award tonight outlines the procurement process the Council has undertaken and its approach. For example, a minimum of 2 contractors are required to provide estimates for their works aligned to the legal requirements. 7 companies were invited to tender as described in tonight's report in paragraph 4. All tenders are appropriately evaluated, carrying out intensive checks to ensure that tenders meet the Council's requirements, which include quality and insurances, as well as financial and economic standing. You'll note from the contract award tonight, both quality and price are evaluated separately to ensure a balanced award of any contract, with quality evaluated first. It is usual practice for leaseholders to be informed of the winning contractor and also to receive a breakdown of the work specification and background information, including surveys. This is the next stage of the consultation process, and the information will be sent out in the post. A meeting will also be arranged for leaseholders to review and inspect the tender documents and associated information. In addition, it is also usual practice for evening meetings to be arranged with council officers and relevant contractors who will be doing the work. Leaseholders will have the right to challenge either the cost, including any fees, or scope of the work with a formal challenge that can be done at any time during the major works process using the first tier tribunal property chamber. Unfortunately, there are no grants or government funding for these works, which are paid for from the Council's ring-fenced housing revenue account. However, the Council continues to make representations to help support the costs associated with increasing building safety, and in particular fire safety work. Being acutely aware of the cost, the Council have a number of repayment options to help leaseholders spread the cost, including from 2.5% prompt payment discount, 10 months interest-free payments, an interest-free loan over a term of up to 5 years secured against the property, a council loan secured against the property, a discretionary loan secured against the property, a voluntary charge, and a flexible payment option. Investor landlords may only apply for options 1, 4 and 6. Individual leaseholders are encouraged to contact their housing officer to discuss the best way forward for. The Council considers these works to be transformative making the outside of your home sort of more attractive and the inside safer and more thermally efficient, with ongoing savings to maintenance costs.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Mr. Phillips, do you have a supplementary question? Now, you may ask a supplementary question before you move on to your second question.
Yeah, only we want to know why it's such a high price compared with other quotes on a similar building. Because that's what it's all about, is the money.
Thank you,
It's not
Mr.
the fact,
Phillips.
yeah, we know there's got to be work done on those properties. Some of it's not been maintained for years, so obviously something's got to be done. But why so much?
Mr. Phillips, again, thank you for your supplementary. Could you turn your microphone off so we can avoid the feedback? Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Thank you. I think you sort of touched on one of the problems that we've had over the last 5 or 6 years. We have been, we the council, the housing revenue account has been short of funds to invest in repair and maintenance work. We had 4 years when rents were actually reduced by 1% a year, which had a huge impact on the income of the housing revenue account. And then we've had some COVID in the last 2 years, that's what slowed everything down. So yes, maintenance has fallen back. But I say what we're trying to do is to squeeze as much work as possible into the repairs and maintenance package to make it as cost efficient as possible. But as I say, there are a number of ways that the payment can be eased. I say there are 7 options, leaseholders, 3 options in a select lot. Our repeat invitation that individual leaseholders or occupiers should speak to their housing officer to actually discuss what is the best way forward. But in addition to all that, as I said before, there will be a further series of meetings once the contract has been awarded, where the actual terms and conditions and content of the prices of the contract will be reviewed and discussed, and it is possible to make some changes to that.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Phillips, you have a second question for Councillor Carter.
From what information I've been able to gather, the major works on Rundles, the Hides and the Hornbeams completed in the last few years was a similar extent to the proposed works. Tenders of larger variations were submitted by companies that have not been invited to quote for the work on the 5 acres. The estimated cost to the individual leaseholders was up to a third of the current estimated works on the 5 acres. Therefore, would I ask for the tenders to be resubmitted to ensure competitive and reputable companies?
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Now, as Councillor Carter has already indicated, the answer to that question has been taken en masse, but you do have the right to a supplementary question if you wish to ask him one.
I think it covers it.
Thank you very much indeed for your time, Mr. Phillips. We now have a question from Mr. Jackman to Councillor Carter. Sorry, Janet and Keith Jackman, beg your pardon.
How can you pick a tender for 5 acres works this evening when there are so many unhappy leaseholders who have sent their concerns to the relevant officer about the tenders for the works? It is not acceptable to have only 2 tenders to choose from. I do not feel confident that we have been given a fair price due to only 2 tenders, and very worried that they don't have past good reviews. We are very concerned by Harlow Council with the known works of these to go ahead with only 2 formal tenders received, as it does not make sense or good business practice. Additionally, we have noticed that you are using different contractors for sites all the time.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackman. And as previously been said, your answer to the question has been formally given to you on page 3 of the pack. So, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Carter?
Yes. When you say that the buildings are maintained, I have a property in Hallbeams and I still pay wage works there, and the building was really run down. I did go to tribunal for historic works, but when I got on there, they talked about something else. But surely if the council are not looking after their buildings and they're deteriorating, then we are having to pay more. He said, this gentleman here said, that they're not doing the buildings or they haven't had the funds, but because you haven't had the funds, it means the buildings are not being maintained. And it says in the contracts that you maintain them, but you haven't.
Mrs. Chapman, may I ask you to pull all of your comments together as a question? I understand the strength of feeling and what you're saying, but could you please ask a question?
What about this? Well,
What is your, we understand the strength of feeling, but what is your question to the councillor?
the councillor.
Yes.
Well, we're not happy about 2 tenders. We're not happy with the price. We're not happy with the reviews. And we're just not happy with the price, basically. And also not happy with, how they charge for all the preliminaries and things. They got to have huts and phone lines and...
Mrs. Chapman, may I assist you tonight? Is your question, you're not happy with the price, so is there an alternative mechanism to set another price?
What I've just said is, you've only got 2 tenders. We are not happy. All of the 5 acres leaseholders are not happy with 2 tenders. I feel that with the price difference, I feel there could be something underhand with it. I don't feel confident that this has been put through properly.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chapman. So, Councillor Carter, I believe the question is, can there be more tenders than the 2 that have been currently put?
Thank you, Chair. I did refer in my main answer that 7 separate companies were invited to tender. It is quite a large, complex tender. We only received 3 responses, and one of those was actually non-compliant, so we were left with the 2. A lot of companies have been provided with the opportunity to tender, and for reasons best known to themselves, they haven't done that. We can't force people to do it. The people we invite to tender are previously, we carry out due diligence on them, so we know they are competent to do it from their previous work. We know they are financially stable enough to actually do the work. And so, we are aware, we are sensitive to costs. But once the contract has been awarded, there will be further consultation with the leaseholders to actually go through the detail of the tender, and that will be an opportunity for you for proposals like that.
Thank you, Councillor. Mrs. Chapman, can I ask you to move on to question 4 that you put in the pack?
I think with what's going on in the world with COVID, war, high bills, etc., that major work should come to a stop at the moment. It's not fair on people. Can the works not be done over a long period so we haven't got 30,000 bill to pay at once? If the council maintained their buildings, we wouldn't have such a high bill. Maybe then the cost of preliminaries would not be so costly and bring our bill down. Maybe they would not need huts and phone lines, etc. These contractors go to work like any other company and workers do. Will this be considered by Harlow Council? It's ruining people's lives, and the councils don't care, as they can just use taxpayers' money for their tenants. We feel that we are being ripped off by these contractors, and something needs to be done to protect us leaseholders. The government needs to step in, because this is happening in all councils across the country, and we will not stop fighting as a group.
Thank you, Mrs. Chapman. Do you have a supplementary question to that?
Yes, I mean, on that one it says about the maintaining of the buildings. Also, with the primaries, the primaries for this project is 100,000 before we even put a liquor paint on. I had friends who works done in buildings, and we paid 60-something thousand for primaries, and all we had was a hut, because they used the hide. And it seemed that all they used this hut for was for the site manager to sleep in, which my husband found in. My thing is why, if the primaries weren't so high, then our bills wouldn't be so high. Why cannot the work be done with just contractors coming to work and doing their job? Why do they need site huts, secure yards and things? I mean, you're saying that you're using companies that are health and safety. We had Zirkin do ravines. I've got pictures here, and I will send them to you. The health and safety was absolutely ridiculous.
Mrs. Chapman, I managed to get, I think the main stem of your question was why the cost of the primaries are high. I understand you're very passionate about this.
I'm very passionate, because
Can
this
I
is our
ask-
second major works.
I appreciate that. So everyone can hear you and understand you, can I ask you to stand as you are now from the microphone? Because when you get very close, it guards
Oh, I
what
see,
you're saying.
yeah,
We can't
yeah.
hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I understand you want to know why the cost of the preliminaries is so
Well, why can't you just,
Councillor
why
Hart.
do you have to have companies come
Okay.
and have these, I mean, it's 100,000 for this.
Mrs. Chapman, we've heard your question, and Councillor Carter will give you the answer.
Thank you, Chair. Referring to my previous answer, which I think was fairly comprehensive, there will be, once the contract has been awarded, there will be a series of meetings with the leaseholders to actually go through the terms and contents of the actual contract itself, where details like this can actually be explored and talked through. We don't have that level of detail.
No, they don't, they've got their primaries and that's it. And it's an open checkbook, the primaries. The council have no say. The company has the open checkbook.
Thank you very
I
much.
think it's ridiculous. I really do.
Thank you very much indeed for your questions. Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Moving on to question 5 from Mr. Williams to Councillor Carter. Beg your pardon, Ms. Williams. Would you like to go ahead with reading your question out?
Okay. My question is, I am really concerned because my job isn't safe and I don't have any money to pay for this. How can you expect us to pay for this for all of a sudden? If I knew about the potential high cost years in advance, then I could have at least tried to save something. I feel completely let down by Harlow Council. Could there be more done to try and receive further tenders from contractors to try and reduce the cost?
Thank you. And again, the answer to your question has already been covered by the councillor, so you have the opportunity to ask him a supplementary question. Do you have a further question you'd like to ask him?
hope, I'm not sure, maybe in a few years or 5 years time, maybe a few months later, my saving job is not safe, and how I'm supposed to pay it. And I already got loan, Tesco loan. I borrowed money of my family. I got 5,000 pound credit card, and you expect me to pay.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. You've asked your question. I'll ask the councillor to answer you now.
Thank you, Chair. Referring to my original reply and the subsequent questions, there are a range of options open to leaseholders to sort of spread the cost over a variety of areas in a variety of ways. We've also explained that yes, we have got that lane with repairs and maintenance, so some of these costs should have come along a bit earlier, so you wouldn't be facing those bills by now. I'd say what we're trying to do now is to get as much work together as possible to reduce the actual overall price, to make it better. But again, as I've said, there will be a subsequent meeting with the contractor to go through the terms, and just speak to your housing officer to discuss your actual your own situation. It's probably better to wait a bit until you get a bit more information, and the way forward is a bit clearer.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you. We now have a question from Sally Jones to Councillor Carter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask, where are the condition surveys for the roof? Where are the condition surveys for the windows? And where are the condition surveys for the cladding? Because I haven't seen them yet.
Thank you very much. And do you have a supplementary question?
No. I would just like to know where the condition surveys are, because I do not see how this work can be predicted without those.
Yes, Councillor Carter, I think maybe you could focus your answer around that particular point.
Thank you. As I have mentioned already, there will be a series of meetings, not just one, but a series of meetings with the leaseholders once the contract has been awarded. One will be specifically to examine the actual tender document and the supporting information as well, which will include things like the surveys and so forth. That will be one meeting, and then there will be another meeting with contractors to actually go through the contents of the contract and how the work is done. So the information will be made available to you. There's no problem at all about that. It's just it hasn't been done at the moment.
Thank you. Mrs. Jones, you have another question for the councillor.
Yes, from one of my neighbours. As we understand, in according to our lease, they will build up a service charge in our separate fund to gain interest over time. We would like to know if this has been done, or it can contribute towards any major works. If not, then when the service charge would be used for. I understand you said about the sinking fund was rejected previously, so I hear your answer to that.
Do you have a further question for the councillor?
No further question, just disappointed that this correspondence had been sent out before the condition surveys were reviewed.
All right. Now we'll move on to written questions from councillors. Question 1, Councillor Vince to Councillor Joel Charles. Councillor Vince.
Thank you, Chair. It's a council notice part of this question to Councillor Joel Charles. I asked the question, but we discussed it yesterday's scheduled subcommittee meeting. But I think it's important to ask in a public forum on this. Can you give an absolute assurance that the priority of HTS is and should be property environment Harlow, above and beyond the profit of other aspects of the new business plan?
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful for the opportunity to expand on my reply to you from yesterday evening. One of the cornerstones of the plan is to
continue to focus on the performance of the core service that HTS was established to deliver. In the first year of the new business plan, for example, there are commitments to update the service level agreement, key performance indicators, and value for money benchmarking to ensure a focus remains on the core activity sitting within property and environment. The revenue target, predicted to land at over 31 million by 2026-27, reflects the ambition for property and environment within the now HTS group. My colleagues within the Cabinet are taking forward various elements of this focus on property and environment, particularly Councillor Nikki Purse, who is working closely with HTS on the ground. The new subsidiaries, sitting under the group structure, two of which are subject to a feasibility study and options appraisal respectively, enable the HTS group to grow to support its future viability and pave the way to access new market opportunities to drive a commercial approach that was always envisaged as the next logical step for our local authority trading company. This is a commitment reinforced in the Council's corporate strategy, complementing the work to deliver the best possible core service.
Councillor Vince, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Charles, for that answer. As I said last night, I appreciate the importance that the micro outlook puts on HTS certainly something that's very dear to us, particularly those core services. My question, and apologies not to send this in advance, so you might be able to give us a fuller answer, but perhaps would be nice, but I was thinking about it today, and following the conversation with John Phillips, we spoke about kind of a risk analysis and risk matrix, and I just wondered, moving forward, if you've got any idea of the timescale of putting together an implementation plan for the new businesses, and obviously when we might be able to think about that risk assessment.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, for that question. On page 22 of the business plan, you'll see the year one objectives and outcomes. As a result of that work, one of those elements is to agree the value for money criteria and measures that will complement that. It is envisaged in the first year under this timeline that the risk ratings will be applied to those entities that go forward. We are obviously doing some due diligence around two of the particular propositions, sitting one within housing and regeneration and two, the construction subsidiary. And as part of that work will be the risk rating that will be applied to those as part of the wider feasibility and options appraisal. So the guarantee I can give you is that within the first year of this roadmap set out in the business plan, we will be doing that appropriate risk rating.
Councillor Turbin, I believe you have a question for me.
I'm happy to have it raised, and I'm quite happy to go into supplementary, if that's okay with you.
I'd like to read the answer because we've got many more people.
Okay, well I'll read the question then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, I was trying to reduce time, clearly. As you are aware, following the evidence provided at the Hertfordshire County Council Health Scrutiny Committee, it's now clear that there is no current agreed funding for the design and development of the new Princess Alexandra Hospital. Can you explain your understanding of the situation? Whilst the Member of Parliament and your own Cabinet members have indicated that funding had been agreed, could we ask you to facilitate an urgent meeting to understand what is fact and what is fiction, with key partners, including political leadership from each of the parties? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turbin, for your question. So we've received no correspondence from the Department of Health to contradict the government's recent detailed announcement about Harlow's new hospital as part of their Levelling Up white paper. The announcement stated that a new integrated high-tech healthcare campus will replace the ageing Princess Alexandra Hospital. As such, we continue to be one of the 8 Pathfinder hospitals as part of the National New Hospital Programme, abbreviated to NHP. The NHP is working to secure a clear funding assessment from Her Majesty's Treasury through a complete new hospital programme business case that supports the 48 new hospital schemes planned for 2030. Our understanding is that the NHP is making the case for an increased level of investment sufficient to enable preferred options to be delivered across all Pathfinder schemes and all other schemes. This is aligned with a review by the NHP of the minimum standards required for example, including the percentage of single rooms and the amount of digital investment required. Detailed costs for the outline business case cannot be finalised until final guidance on minimum standards has been received. It is clear that the cost of delivering a new integrated high-tech healthcare campus on a greenfield site, including digital investment in net zero carbon technology, significantly exceeds the original indicative allocations announced in 2019, that being £350 million. We understand that the NHP programme business case will be presented to HM Treasury at the end of spring.
Thank you for reading that. My supplementary is I was wondering whether or not you could actually respond to the question with, would you agree that it would be helpful to facilitate an urgent meeting to understand what is fact and what is fiction with key partners, including the political leadership from each party? That was the original question, which you have failed to answer. Do you need advice?
Councillor Durkin, when we know more, we will be happy to facilitate a meeting, but currently I've given you the latest understanding, and we've been in consultation with our colleagues at the West Essex Healthcare Trust to understand this situation more, and I've given you as much information as available to me. So I'm more than happy to arrange meetings in the future when more information comes to light.
Thank you.
Question 3, Councillor David Carter to Councillor Dan Swords. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. Question again. I understand the Cabinet Member for Regeneration has announced a new house building programme that we will see tonight. I want to know whether any more money will be wasted on consultancy plans and fees that lead to nothing, and if these schemes will actually be delivered and not just left on the shelf as they have been in the past.
Thank you for your question. The new house building programme we're setting out tonight will not only deliver hundreds of new council homes for Harlow families, but it radically overhauls the way the council goes through the process of house building. As set out in the report, the new three-stage process will ensure value for money is at the forefront of every decision. At all three stages, both myself and the Director of Strategic Growth and Regeneration must sign a formal report setting out in-depth detail of the scheme and its ambitions. This comes on top of a dedicated section in the report about value for money. This follows an internal review when it came to light that 1.13 million had been spent by a former Cabinet Member for Regeneration on house building projects that never happened. The new house building programme also focuses on delivery. The 2021 scrutiny report into house building highlighted the litany of failures in the process. I will not go through those well-versed issues, but this report addresses them all. The new process will ensure that never again will 450,000 be spent on designs, plans and consultants fees, only to discover a water main under the site. It goes further and makes clear that we will be absolutely transparent and accountable at every stage. And finally, it shows that we will be on site building new council homes for Harlow families within months. So no schemes will be left on the shelf. Never again will taxpayers' money be wasted, and yes, we are delivering hundreds of new council homes for Harlow families.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. Councillor Carter, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. I'd like to thank the Council for his answer. In my ward, I have the eyesore called Sherard's House. It's been a problem for many years. In the plans, you say it will be used to build 16 new homes. And these will be completed by June 2024. What I'd like to know is what type of these homes will be and when will construction start?
Councillor Swords.
As the new build programme sets out, these will be mixed dwellings in terms of size, and I can assure you of the highest quality, because I don't think you'd let me get away with anything less. And as I understand, we will be on site under construction within the next 12 months.
Thank you. Councillor Carter, I believe you had another question for Councillor Sauce.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. For many years, people have promised to do something about the town centre. I see that the new three-part plan has been announced, but when will we see action? Not just more plans, but actual construction work.
Councillor Sauce.
Our new three-step plan to regenerate the town centre is a crystal clear roadmap to the future we want to see. A future in which Harlow is one of the best towns to shop, eat, drink, entertain and enjoy leisure. Tonight we will be passing the first step in that roadmap with the first ever planning framework for the town centre. This cannot be understated. It arms our planning department with the powers they did not previously have to safeguard our town centre as the liberation that has been so long overdue, namely proper regeneration, steps forward. As the three steps set out, there will be no more dither and delay. We are getting on with the job of regenerating our town centre, and construction work will be underway in parts of the town centre within the next financial year. This will be followed by much greater construction work as set out in the three-step plan. Also want to address one final point. I've read back through nearly 14 years worth of press reports about the town centre, as you would expect me to do, dating back to when the Stockman scheme did not progress. And the thing that struck me more than anything was the absolute comfort in underperformance. The excuses that we can't do anything, it's all down to the private sector and the government won't give us the money. I say to those people, you should be ashamed. We have held Harlow back and let down our town. We are getting on with the job and rebuilding our town centre.
Councillor Carter, did you have a supplementary question?
Just a quick question. I'll be watching the progress.
More a statement of intent, I imagine. No, okay. Right, so let's written questions from councillors. Petitions from the public have not been made aware of any. Yes, I'm going on to that next. No petition? Okay. And as I said earlier, I'm moving item 16 up, which is the contract award for external refurbishment at 106 to 116, 38 to 42, 45 to 49, 7 to 17 and 85 to 95, 5 acres, found on page 442 to 444 of your pack. I'll allow councillors time to find that page, and when we get there I'll ask Councillor Simon Carter to move that paper. Councillor Carter, do you move that paper?
Was I moved on to speak?
Can I take a second for that? Yes. Over to you, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. I want to say that as well. I think it's been effectively aired tonight. There is a lot of work being done to the 5 acres. I have to put our hands up and say we have got behind with the repairs and maintenance. But we believe by bringing all these things together, we can actually reduce the overall cost. Now, it is a big hit, but there are several options available to leaseholders to try and help them pay. There is more consultation to carry on with the developers once the contract is awarded, and they are being urged to contact their housing officer to discuss their individual circumstances, see what else we can do. The next round of consultation with the contractor, they will be going through the details, and if there's anything that can be done better or differently, then that's be certainly considered. Although obviously I'm not making any guarantees at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. We come to questions. Councillor Evans.
Firstly, I know that according to the papers that this is in Harlow Common. Is that correct?
I believe not.
Can I ask the papers be corrected, please? That's the first question.
Of course, I do apologise.
Thank you. Secondly, picking up on the points I think that were made in terms of the debate, can I ask how the criteria for the repayment options was arrived at? So you list a number of 1 to 7 ways in which payment can be made. Can I ask how does that criteria arise?
These options are an existing set which have been developed over many years to help out with these payments. I think item 7 is probably a more flexible one, and they are encouraged to talk to their housing to discuss that sort of circumstances and how the council can actually help them.
Councillor
If I may come back again, can I ask then that given that where we are currently at a time of huge economic potential hardship, people are facing huge potential hardship, can I ask that consideration be given also to reviewing that? I don't know when that was last reviewed, that criteria. Can I ask that consideration be given to reviewing the criteria to bear in mind, let's say, the current situation, economic situation that tenants now find, leaseholders now find themselves in?
Thank you, Councillor. Please, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. So there is a range of options and flexibility there already, but obviously everything which can be looked at will be looked at. And yes, I can give you that undertaking that we will be going through that.
Councillor, did you have a question?
Further question. Again, picking up from the discussion earlier on there, what seemed to be concerning the leaseholders was that the contract was being agreed prior to them having any say in terms of what was in the contract and what the justification was for the particular bits of work that was being done. The response that was being given was, oh, you'll have that opportunity to discuss that with us and with the contractor once the contract has been agreed. Now, from the leaseholder's point of view, what they're concerned about is that the contract is being agreed, the price is being set, and they have questions about what's being agreed and why. So is it possible, prior to the contract actually being agreed, that actually further work could be done with the leaseholders, looking at the justifications for the particular work that is being requested?
Councillor Carter.
Thank you. I think there have been at least 2 rounds of consultation beforehand, advising the leaseholders that this work is coming up, what the work is going to be, including whether they wanted to nominate any particular contractors. There was no response to those 2 letters of consultations, and it's really only since the estimated bills have gone out that we've actually heard back from them. As I said during the question, there will be several more rounds of consultation, one of which is the access to all the documentation, tender documents, various surveys and so forth, they will be open. And then a meeting with contractors and housing staff to go through, and in the best sort of open and flexible way, where these details can be looked at and examined, and if there are sufficient adequate grounds, sufficient pleading to change an aspect of it, then I'm sure it can be changed, which may include possibly leaving something out, possibly doing something in a different way. But it's a chicken and egg. Where do you let the contract, and where do you actually analyse what's going into it? If you do it beforehand, you've got no idea how much it's going to cost and how much you're talking about. So at least there is a reference point to work from, and say, does it have to be, can it be done this way? It's an alternative. You can actually see what the impact is. But say that there are lots more rounds of consultation and lots more opportunities for leaseholders to talk to us, take it forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. I have given Councillor Carter notice of my question, and I received the questions from the public today, able to see that probably my question has already been asked by one of the members of the public. But just to confirm my question, and I asked Councillor Carter about what support can be given in these hard times for leaseholders. Can Councillor Carter confirm that in his answer he said that there is no current government support or funding available to help his leaseholders out?
Councillor Carter.
For the nature of the work, no, there isn't. The HRA rules and the government expect most of the routine roof repairs, walls, windows, and so forth to be met out of the revenue account on an ongoing basis. I'll put my hand up both on your behalf and my behalf that we did get behind with the maintenance. Remember the problem over the falling rents for 4 years, COVID all work. So yes, there is a problem there. But in terms of the routine maintenance, no, there isn't. There was supposed to be money coming for fire prevention works, but these problems are not tall enough to warrant that.
Councillor Wilkinson, do you have any more questions?
I have no further questions. I do have comments when we come to comments, please, Chair.
That's fine. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Khan, you said that. Sorry, am I getting feedback?
It might be your computer where it's in the.
Councillor Carter, I noticed you said that there hadn't been response from leaseholders on 2 opportunities to consult on the issue, and it wasn't until the point at which a bill or documentation about the costs were sent round that you started to hear from people, and I have sympathy to the frustration of that. Nothing sharpens the mind like seeing figures on a page, does it? In the sense that I'm not surprised that was when people's attention was caught by the issue, and I recognise that efforts were made before that to engage with them. But I guess my question is, would you agree that it is at least, at best, regrettable that this issue has come to light on the day that we are looking at a community engagement strategy, which, to quote outcome 2, and forgive the feedback, but I think it's important, it says local people. Well, you might be saved my reading out because I've, in the interest of saving the feedback, I've shut my computer down. But outcome 2.
I think we have a question though, don't we, Councillor Harvey, which is it regrettable that we've...
Well, I'd just like to say that the outcome number 2 is that local people feel involved in decision making that affects them, and I think it's regrettable that the process we seem to have heard about tonight does not allow for that insofar as the points at which the future consultation is going to take place, as I have understood it from the discussion tonight, will be after the contract has been signed. And, you know, the truth of the matter is the opportunity as a community to influence the decision at that point is negligible at best. Would you agree?
Would you take it on? Councillor Carter.
Thank you. Well, I agree. Probably yes. But sadly, sort of as far as leaseholders are concerned, there is a raft of legislation, regulation, and processes where we have to observe, and that is what we are observing. I'm sure it can be tweaked a bit to make sure we cover as many angles as possible. We can certainly improve the wording table. The actual process is actually laid down in statute, and however much more we would like to, we're always open to talk to people, obviously, but as regards the process, we must actually sort of follow the legislation, otherwise it could be a challenge.
Any further questions? Councillor Harvey.
going to say that my follow-up question is, would you agree that there is a greater need for horizontal working within the council so that real-life examples such as this benefit from the work that's gone into the community engagement strategy, so that is where, because I think that is where people are really interested in seeing that kind of work find its teeth, is in issues that affect their back pocket.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to come to Councillor Charles and then you, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Jim. Can I just get clarification from Councillor Carter that in the letters of correspondence in terms of consultation with planning services before the correspondence about the costings, that there was an opportunity for residents to suggest a contractor in the spirit of consulting them on the process going forward?
Indeed, yes. Again, that is all part of the initial application process. Probably not every leaseholder is fully aware of the current construction company situation. We know it, there might be somebody who wants to put the name forward, which they're perfectly entitled to do so. On this occasion, there's no response.
Councillor David Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. What I'd like to ask is, I have a leaseholder, not in 5 acres, but another part of Harlow. She's had a similar sort of letters. What is concerning her is that she recently, within the last 18 months, spent £6,000 on having her windows all double glazed. The letter says that part of what's going on will be windows. Now, I think it would be ridiculous for her to have to pay to have windows replaced, which she only had done 18 months ago. Will this further consultation rule that sort of thing out to her satisfaction?
Councillor Carter.
Yes. This is why there is the follow-up meeting with the contractor to actually go through the detail and where work is not required for whatever reason, then it's not included, and obviously she will not be charged for that element of the overall contract.
Councillors, are there any further questions before we move into comments? Okay, anybody wishing to make comments? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I almost concur with Councillor Carter on one of his comments he made earlier today. I do agree with him that for years of rent reduction in this town, probably every town across this country, did significant damage to housing revenue account and did significant damage to our maintenance programme because of lack of funding. So that's why I start off and saying we do agree on. Where I do have a problem with this report, and probably this is going to be the first of many reports like this is going to come to this in front of this chamber with a lot of concern of leaseholders across the whole town. Well, I have a major concern and a major comment to make, and I think Councillor Carter made a comment only 2 or 3 minutes ago about there being no government funding or support for these residents because they don't live in a high enough block. What is wrong in this country is the current government have announced a little while ago that they were going to support leaseholders on fire safety works, and on page 442 of this report it clearly indicates that there's fire safety work going on with all this building work and cladding work, etc. The government have made a statement that they're willing to support leaseholders that live in blocks above a certain height. I can't understand the logic, and I waited with bated breath yesterday for the Chancellor's budget or spring statement, whatever it was called. I think some people call it other things, but whatever it was officially called, that maybe there'll be support offered in the hard times at the moment. And I believe I saw something earlier today that the cost of living crisis is the worst for 50 years in this country. I thought there would have been support for leaseholders that are having to pay for this kind of cladding, fireworks within his budget. I waited with bated breath, none happened. There's no support at all for these people in that position. But if you was a leaseholder earning twice as much money, you lived in a Toilet Tower block, then you get support and grant and funding from the government, and I find that extremely concerning. And I just wanted to make that point that I think it's incumbent across this council to put more pressure on the government to do more to help leaseholders out. They're now going to be facing major bills in this type of work. Thank you, Chair.